Hello, everyone, and welcome along to another episode of Championship Grill with me, Steve, and joined as always with Phil.
Yeah,
How you doing, Phil? Good weekend?
yeah, it's all good. I had an interesting weekend. Not every day you get to meet Phil Collins' son.
Filming down in the music video with Phil
Yeah,
Collins' son Simon. So yeah,
yeah, it was
interesting weekend to say the least.
an interesting one. I wasn't.
Uh,
I never put two and two together. It was a weird one. He's the one who said, because me and Emmett were talking about like my dad follows West Brom. He was asking me about my dad following West Brom in football, and he was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"Did you look me up?" Or he heard us, and he was like, "Did you look us up or something?" And I was like, "No, not really." He was like, my
Uh,
dad. You know who my dad is. And it was just weird.
you probably thought a West Brom player, did you?
I know, yeah. And he's like, "No, my dad's Phil
My
Collins."
dad is Cyril Regis.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine. But no, it was interesting. I liked it. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, good weekend.
Um,
Um, There you go. So a little bit of news before we go into the weekend, the games, and all the results that were there. Cardiff still don't have a manager,
yeah,
um, which is worrying to say the least for them.
yeah. Especially with who you told me earlier, who they might be.
Yeah, I mean the favorite for the man. There's three people. Um, there's three people who are currently there, uh, looking for the job. I suppose they're favorites for the job. I guess is a better way of putting it.
I'm just looking through the list there. Like,
You've got Lamucci, who was at Nottingham Forest.
yeah,
Um, wasn't great, like you said beforehand,
no,
in
like
Forest.
okay, like
He was the guy in charge when they dropped out of the playoffs that time.
yeah,
And when they like had to lose 6-0 or something on the last day to drop out
yeah,
and
yeah.
managed to do it. How that wasn't investigated is beyond me, by the way. Because that was really iffy that you needed that much of a goal swing and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've got him, you've got Ishmael, um, who came into Barnsley, did a wonderful, wonderful job, went to West Brom, not such a wonderful job.
Yeah.
So, but you reckon he might suit Cardiff, he might suit that kind of a club better.
Yeah, there's also as well. I see Lee Lennon is there. That's an interesting one.
Interesting one, yeah, definitely, for Neil Lennon.
But he's never
I'm
managed. He's
wondering,
never managed in England, so
yeah,
yeah,
no, what I would say then as well is so we've got Ishmael
yeah,
there, and then the favourite at the minute, or it was when I checked earlier, is Big Sam.
yeah. That's a weird one.
A weird one, but he's brought teams up from the championship before,
Yeah,
um, so we see how it goes. And then since we were on the last time, you had an appointment not long after we came off the air last time in Mick McCarthy,
for
who we
six
were only
months.
talking about last week,
Yeah,
and going to Blackpool. A good appointment there, I think.
yeah.
Um,
Let's just hope that the same thing doesn't happen. What happened with him the last time? He did so well that they kept him, and then it just went
yeah,
down.
and then
And
things went pear shaped. But I think that's a good, smart appointment when you're trying to stay up
yeah,
because he's got such experience in this division and just in football in general.
yeah. And there's a
Uh,
few Irish lads there, and there as well. There's a few Irish lads in there.
yeah, and I mean he just knows the division so well.
Yeah,
He knows how to win in this division, and it's not something everybody can do easily. So I think it's a good appointment. I think Cardiff have to get their next appointment right for sure.
that's why I'm saying like someone like Ishmael or Neil Lennon. Um,
Yeah.
just because Big Sam was in his 70s.
Well, you know what Big Sam's going to do. You know how he's going to play. You know he's going to he'll get the results. He'll keep them up. I mean, he's the guy you bring in when you don't want to get relegated.
Yeah, even Neil Warnock as well. He's there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. And that's not what they want. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing in a Big Sam for 6 months. We talked about it last week to just keep you in the division.
Yeah, yeah,
But then in the summer, you have to think, look, I'm going to go with a younger manager, and no matter what, this is our guy for like 4 or 5 years.
yeah. That's it exactly.
And I think that's the way football is going to hopefully start to go a bit more. I think a lot of that will be down to when you
What
look at the
Arteta's
success in
doing,
the
man.
Premier League. But
Arteta.
Arteta at Arsenal is it? Like, I mean, he'd have been sacked if he was at any other club.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, that they're going to give him time and more time. And I think that's the way to do it.
yeah.
it's very hard. Like, I mean, how long has Bilic been at Watford now? It must be nearly a record.
About 6 months, but yeah.
So we'll wait and see anyway what happens there with that one. Other news, I suppose, bit of transfers going on. Cantwell leaving Norwich, as we knew he would. I mean, he was always going to go.
What was
Joins Rangers.
What was the fee?
Undisclosed, but what I'm hearing is it was not a lot, in and around 1.5 million.
That's mental considering there was teams quoted 30 million for him.
There was at one time, yeah, and I think his contract is probably up in the summer.
Yeah.
If maybe it wasn't, but 24 now, 1.5 million, good signing. Now 1.5 million is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Certainly it wasn't much more than that.
Like they might offer him to take all his wages or whatever as well.
Yeah. Rangers don't have the money to be spending 8 million on a player, like so.
Yeah. But he could shine.
He could be about 1.5 million.
He might shine in Scotland.
Yeah.
A
few weird ones in terms of there's a lot of transfers going on, and we'll have a proper look at the transfers kind of closer to the window going. Ekdal joining Burnley for just under 3 million. 24-year-old centre back joining from the Swedish Djurgården. Could be good. Don't know anything about him. We'll have to wait and see. Charlie Good going to Blackpool. Good signing, I think, from Brentford.
Yeah, nice. He was in the Championship when Brentford were there. He's good. He knows the league again. Good signing.
And Reece Williams going away from Blackpool to Liverpool. I think that's kind of good. Came in. Williams went back to Liverpool. I think that's kind of why that happened. Matt Macey left Luton, going on to Portsmouth. Matt Macey, who's apparently only 28 years old. That must be a typo. Surely he's 38. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
And you had a couple of players that were just kind of Hull City lost a couple of loan players that went back to their parent clubs. They weren't getting enough game time, I would imagine. Not a lot else really in the transfers that stands out to me anyway.
No.
I suppose Fosu gone back to or has gone to Brentford from Stoke. Not a lot else really happening. And obviously there's still a little bit of time to go, so we'll wait and see what happens. Whether or not what's weird, I suppose, in this transfer window, one thing we can talk about before we go into the games. One player, whenever there's a transfer window in the Championship, that we always talk about, and he never moves, is Ismaila Sarr.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is what happens now is they'll go up and he'll stay with them again.
That's the issue, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, who's going to buy Sarr? I mean, Chelsea. I mean, do they have enough wingers yet? 12 wingers, I think Chelsea have. Maybe they could add another one.
Well, there's 2 more players going to them now, so yeah.
I mean, the problem with it is if a team comes in for Sarr, he's going to cost them 20 to 25 million, somewhere around there, probably.
Yeah.
Probably worth it, but like, you're looking at the teams in the bottom 3 or bottom 4 of the Premier League, realistically. And are they going to spend that kind of money on a winger?
No.
Do they even need a winger?
No, that's it exactly. It's tough, like, because as you said, like his fee is too high. It's tough. Like Newcastle maybe.
Maybe someone like that. Like, but the problem is, even at Newcastle, is he going to get a game ahead of Almiron at the minute? You know.
Yeah, and Maximin, yeah.
Maxima, yeah, it's a tough one. It's where does he go in January? I think more likely to go in the summer, but then again, the fact that we haven't had him linked with anyone might be a sign that he might finally go. So we'll wait and see.
Spurs are another option because they need players like that.
Yeah.
After watching them tonight, they just looked lacking ideas again. But like they need creative players.
Yeah. So it's a strange one. It's a strange one for the transfer window. Nothing major happening yet.
No.
But we've got a week or so to go, so we'll wait and see what happens in the last week. I think we're going to see some transfers definitely happening.
Yeah.
Suppose we might as well talk about the games at the weekend. The results.
Yeah,
Where will we start? I suppose we might as well start
Friday
at the
night.
beginning
Friday night. Yeah,
of Friday night's game. Or the two games on Friday night. I watched Burnley West Brom.
that's same. I was watching as well.
Um, Burnley just looked very good.
The second half, they're outstanding. West Brom were terrible in that second half.
They were awful, and I mean, after getting the early goal, you thought, this could be a turning point in the season now for West Brom.
No,
Get that early goal and really push on, and maybe give teams hopes of catching Burnley.
no.
I mean, Burnley are up. I mean, and I think they're going to be good watching the Premier League.
Just looking at the table there, Burnley are 19 points clear of Watford.
Yeah, I mean, they're not catching them. I mean, in order for them to catch them, you're looking at what? There's 18 games left.
Yeah.
You're going to say Watford have to be perfect, and Burnley are going to have to lose 7 matches, essentially.
Yeah, won't happen.
I can't see either of those things happening.
No.
Likewise, I think Sheffield United, it's a 14-point gap they have.
Yeah.
But the battle for the playoff places is insane. I mean, it is literally insane.
Yeah, so you've at least 10 teams or more.
Yeah. Coventry are 6 points from the playoffs, 9 points from relegation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Now, Coventry still have a few games in hand as well. As they always seem to have games in hand. But it's, I know Watford and Borough both have games in hand over Sheffield United and Burnley, but the gap is too big. I just can't see those teams suddenly going on a terrible run and losing 4 or 5 in a row. Or even losing 4 or 5 the rest of the season.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah.
But yeah, Burnley were dominant. They deserved to win overall. The funny thing is, I said to my dad, "This is going in," when the free kick came.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just see it. I don't know. I just saw it. This was in.
Yeah.
Well deserved the win.
I think so. I mean, I think it was a well-deserved win. I think it was a very, very good win for them. Deservedly, like you said, the second half, West Brom will be very disappointed in how they played, like you said.
Go up, they weren't even in the game, really.
No. Yeah, and they just, I don't know, they just kept attacking in the second half. And to be fair to West Brom, they almost held out. They almost got the point.
Yeah.
But again, late goals are always going to be a disaster.
Burnley seem to get a lot of them. They
do. So you had that. Then the other game that was on the Friday night, Sheffield United. Getting some of the goal early on, late red card for Hull. Just kind of a job done, kind of a night for Sheffield United.
Pretty much. The early goal killed them, and they just Watford or Hull don't have the firepower. To damage the top teams. So.
Yeah. Burnley late winner, Sheffield United early goal hung on essentially. They weren't really hanging on. I mean, it wasn't like Hull were battering them or anything.
Yeah, I know,
but still, the early goal, you like 1-0 is always dodgy, and it took Burnley a while, but I think Burnley are just going to be good in the Premier League next season. It's going to be a different type of Burnley.
Yeah, it's not this, as we've talked about many times. It's not this 1-0 wins.
No.
That you always get.
Yeah, Norwich were always good at getting the 1-goal wins here and there, weren't they?
Yeah.
But you look at the goal difference, and you look at the top two's goal difference compared to everyone else in the division, and it's insane. I think in terms of goal difference, you have Burnley are plus 29, Sheffield United are plus 24, and the next best are Middlesbrough with plus 9.
Exactly.
Except they're scoring a lot of goals, Burnley and Sheffield United. Even though, it wouldn't seem it on Friday night, but they are. And it's just crazy how tight the rest of the division is.
Yeah.
And we might as well have a look at some of the Saturday results, I suppose.
The Saturday half 12 game was mental. Norwich
Absolutely nuts.
aren't so
What a mad opening half hour.
yeah. And the manager was afterwards. I know the Norwich's new manager was not happy afterwards.
No, I mean, you 3-0 up after 20 minutes, well, 18 minutes,
Yeah,
and you're coasting. And it's 3-2 after 26 minutes.
yeah, it's crazy.
It was mental. And obviously they went on, they got another one. But I mean, it's a game Norwich kind of dominated.
Yeah.
But they could have ended up not taking the 3 point. No, huge 3 points for Norwich.
Yeah.
By the way, because they're in danger of not making the playoffs. They're really in a fight for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Norwich should be battling up at the top of the table for one of the automatic spots. I think we felt,
with Wagner, there's a great chance they could go up.
Yeah. I
Really?
mean, it's just ridiculously tight, the division at the minute. Like Norwich with the win climb up in there. It's insane how tight it is.
Yeah.
Like there's 3 points between Watford in third and West Brom in ninth.
I know. It's mad.
You
right?
know, it's madness. You know, like within 5 points of the playoffs, you're going all the way down to Reading in 14th.
Yeah.
You know, and I know Reading aren't in the best form. QPR are not in good form. And all that. Sunderland's starting to climb up the table. And we'll get on to them in a minute. But yeah, I mean, Wagner's certainly going to be hoping the Norwich games aren't like this every week.
Yeah. He's getting them scoring, though. They're scoring goals under him. They're back scoring goals.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's gone kind of well for them.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other ones, games then, Birmingham, Preston. Big win for Preston. Kind of early goals kind of got it for them in that one.
It's nice to see Alan Brown score.
Yeah, disappointing for Birmingham as they start to slip back down the table again.
Yeah, the World Cup thing has not helped them. They're not good since they've come back.
Preston, though, they're just outside the playoffs in terms of points wise. So they'll probably lose their next 2 games, I imagine. It seems to be the way they go, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That when they get near the playoffs, that's when they lose.
Yeah.
Like they have a -5 goal difference.
Yeah.
Which isn't much because Blackburn and Fort have -4, but
yeah.
It's been a weird season for Preston.
It's
all those nil-all draws.
The odd goal, yeah.
All those 1-0 wins and nil-all draws that they had at the start. But, 18 games to go. For the first time in a while, you'd say they're still in with a shout at the playoffs. And it's been a few years since that was the case.
Yeah.
Usually they faded by now, but, that was a big win for them to stay on pace.
Getting the lap as well. Didn't the lap go there on loan?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good signing from.
And to be fair, like, they played well in this one, Preston.
They did, yeah.
Especially early on. Like I said, it was good to see Brown getting a goal. And it took Birmingham a while to get back there. Also, I think it was the first time a woman refereed a championship game.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Nice to see, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah, I thought she did a fine job. I mean, there was nothing really massively controversial happened.
Yeah. Which is always good because you do worry sometimes that the pressure's on.
Yeah. It was a strange kind of a game in that Preston very good early on and Birmingham tried to come back into it but weren't. I don't know. It's a strange one. The goals were terrible. To be honest, they were shockers to concede. Birmingham won't be happy with the goals they gave away. But Preston, up, doing well, flying it. That's the way we go. Blackpool Huddersfield was called off due to a frozen pitch, which is kind of mad to think a championship game can be called off due to a frozen pitch, but there you go. Bristol City and Blackburn Rovers. Disappointing for Blackburn, this one, I think.
Yeah, their team that's up and down.
Lucky not to lose it in the end, to be honest. I mean,
Bristol City are actually out a bit of form as well.
Yeah, they've been in a bit of form, especially at home. And they've gone so long without winning at home.
Yeah.
Then they get that one win, they go on that bit of a run, like you say.
Okay.
9 points off the playoffs. Can Bristol City go on a mad run, or is there too many teams between them?
I think there's where they are now will probably be where they finish.
There's too many teams realistically between them and the playoffs. Like they'd only won the last 8 at Ashton Gate, like you said, so their form wasn't great. But that win came, I think, a couple of games ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think Bristol City will look back at it and be like, "How did we not win this game?" Especially when they went down to 10 men.
They played well, to be fair, as well. Like, and also as well, Senio. Was it good to see him score?
Yeah. What about the red card? The second yellow was a bit harsh.
Yeah, like again, I don't know. Like, would you reckon VAR would overturn it?
Well, they can't if it's the second yellow.
Oh, okay.
VAR isn't allowed to overturn it if it's second.
Right.
Like for me, it's a case of, if that was my team, I'd be very disappointed if a player got sent off for that. You know, but then again, when you're on a yellow card, don't give the ref a decision.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
Bristol City then had a goal disallowed as well. Manager was given out about it. No VAR, obviously, saying that they were in a poor position. And I'll talk about that a little bit with the Sunderland Middlesbrough game as well. On one of the decisions. The official not keeping up with play properly. And the goal was obviously disallowed, Bristol City's one. Yeah, strange one.
Yeah,
but the manager
it might be only a matter of time before VAR is in the championship.
There's so much money in the championship that it's kind of mad, it isn't there?
Yeah.
And there's been a few decisions that are like could really, really cost teams.
Well,
but anyway,
I know that 3 points won't be a difference maker, sure, at the end of the season. No. You never know.
You never know. But I mean, for Blackburn Rovers, that point could end up being crucial come the end of the season.
Exactly.
Because it is so tight there.
They seem to be just chipping away.
Yeah. Cardiff, Millwall, like you said, Cardiff are in a mess. Millwall quietly starting to sneak back up the table.
Yeah, they're getting a good few wins now in the last few weeks.
Yeah. And they stay 8th despite the win, but they're only their goal difference is all that's keeping them out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they're one of the teams on 27. So they have a game in hand over Norwich, they have a game in hand over Blackburn, game in hand over Watford.
That's the thing, like they could go all the way up to 3rd.
They could. They're in their game in hand. And they've had a good season. They're not this is a game they draw the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been 0-0 straight up.
Yeah. And how this only ended 1-0 beyond me. There were so many chances in this game.
There was over 30 shots on goal between two teams.
Crazy that it finished 1-0.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, Cardiff, yeah, it's a strange one for them because they are struggling. So they do need to get somebody in because they really are in trouble now. Like Huddersfield with their game called off gives them that extra game in hand again.
Yeah.
And that game in hand for Cardiff and for Blackpool and Huddersfield, rather, that's a game against each other.
Yeah.
If one of them wins that, Cardiff are in the bottom 3.
Yeah. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they go down. Like if you were to say to me that they're gone down, it wouldn't surprise me.
And that's why I think appointing someone like Big Sam till the end of the season isn't a terrible idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone who could just get you enough points to keep you up.
Yeah, they need to stay off.
Yeah. I mean, they do. We look at like some of the other results and other teams trying to get out there. QPR won, Swansea won. A result that does nothing for either team, realistically. Swansea was starting to push up the table a bit.
I've talked about them and they're just coasting it now. They just want this season over with.
It seems like it, but like at the same time, QPR are only 4 points off the playoffs.
Yeah.
They can't be taking their foot off the gas that much.
But like this is a team that were like coasting the league. Weren't they like 10 points clear at one point?
They were flying it at one time, and it was like this team will never lose again.
Yeah.
And they've just gone on a terrible run of about 4 or 5 games before the World Cup, and they just have not picked it up since.
Like, I'm pretty sure they had like a 10-point gap at one point, and they were like, yeah, it was
They were
mad.
miles. They were flying
That
it.
was mad. I can't understand the
Yeah.
downfall. What's happened?
It really is a strange one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one for them because it's hard to know what's after going wrong for them.
Yeah, and then the next game, Reading got hammered by Stoke.
Yeah, Stoke have this in them every now and then,
Yeah,
and my God, did they need a win?
yeah. The problem here is they got hammered by Stoke, and if they
Yeah,
get hammered by Manchester United at the weekends, Reading.
that's a problem. And Reading are again, they're one of these teams that are close to the playoffs, but a
Yeah.
bad run, and they'll start to drop down more towards the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to go down or anything, but I mean, team again that were doing so well for so long this season, they're going to be disappointed where they are.
Yeah. That's the
Um,
thing, like it was a very poor result to even 4 goals
yeah,
against Stoke, who barely scored 2 at the most of the times.
I know. And you know, Reading were their own worst enemies with some of the goals they gave away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
point for Rotherham against Watford.
Yeah, Rotherham need to keep picking up points. That's a bad result for Watford.
Yeah.
How Bilic wasn't sacked after it, I don't know, because it's Watford. Absolutely, he's gone if they don't get promoted.
Yeah, I would think so. He knows
We
himself.
know that.
Yeah,
But big win for Rotherham because they need to start picking up points because they are very close to that bottom three.
they're like a point above it or something, are they? No, they're
They're
not.
what are they now? They're
4
like
points.
5 points above it,
But
but
Huddersfield have 2 games in
they still
hand.
have 2 games in hand, and Blackpool have a game in hand.
Yeah.
So it's a strange one. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Luton, Wigan, poor old Cole Toure can't get a win.
Has
As
he,
Wigan
has he
manager.
won yet? He's not won yet.
No wins yet for him.
Yeah, I feel
Obviously
pretty
got
bad.
the late draw.
Yeah.
No wins in 9 games, not the best start to his managerial career.
No, I wonder should
Uh,
he have took a lower league job first.
Maybe at the
Is it
same
too much
time,
pressure?
it's Wigan he's after taking over. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, they're not. Yeah, exactly.
They're not the best team in the world, but no wins in 9 is not great.
Yeah,
You know, no wins in 9 isn't a great start. So that's all for the Saturday games. Luton, though, again, like Millwall, slowly climbing back up that table.
again, they could be third if they win their game in hand. So
Yeah, and I
they're
think
very hard to
it's a
beat.
good
Like
one.
they're very difficult to beat.
Yeah, and then we had the Tyne-Wear derby yesterday. The game turned on a red card,
Yeah,
and this is the one I want
didn't
to
get
talk
to
about.
see it, sadly.
I thought the ref was way too far behind the play to make a call on this.
Yeah.
I don't think. Um, I don't think it's a red card. I don't think it's a penalty. The linesman is much closer than the referee.
Yeah.
He didn't flag for a penalty. He didn't flag for a free kick. The ref has made up his decision.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weird one because okay, you can say it might be a foul because he was pulling him back a little bit.
Yeah.
He wasn't pulling him back that much, but he certainly wasn't fouling him inside in the box.
Yeah.
That to me was a terrible decision to give them a penalty.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then, like, I thought it was terrible. I really did think it was a bad call. And I think the ref, when he sees it back, is going to be really disappointed in himself. Because it is blatantly outside the box. So he gives him the red card. Okay, if the ref thinks it's a free kick, he is true on goal.
Yeah.
To give a penalty then as well was kind of mad. Stewart steps up, misses the penalty, is able to tap in the rebound. Now, for me, if I was in charge of football, and you know, if FIFA decide to come knocking on my door and they're like, "Hey, Steve, you know, you're in charge, make up some new rules." One of the rules I would make up or not make up, but that I would impose immediately would be if you take a penalty,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to go for the rebound.
Yeah. I think once you miss it, that's it. That's done. Like,
Yeah,
it's
like
done.
I've no problem if a keeper saves it and the rebounds out, and one of the players from outside the box runs in and taps it in,
Yeah.
because at least the defenders also have a chance to react from outside the box.
Yeah.
But when you're like 6 yards further forward than anybody taking the penalty, I just think it's an unfair advantage because you've already given him a penalty, which is a great chance to score. And for me, that's a rule change that I'd make. I'd make it so that if you take a penalty and the keeper saves it, you're not allowed to go for the rebound.
Exactly.
Only anyone else on the pitch should be allowed to. There's not much to say about the game. I thought Middlesbrough were really, really impressive in the second half, despite being down to 10 men.
Yeah.
I really did think they were very, very good. No complaints about the second goal. Brilliantly taken by Diallo. Killed off the game because at that time Middlesbrough were really pushing for an equaliser. Hit on the break. Wonderful bit of skill. Lovely finish. But yeah, it moves Sunderland up to 9th, only a point off the playoffs. Middlesbrough down now to 6th because of the goal difference of losing 2-0. It's two teams that are going really well at the minute.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at this table and you're looking at within 3 points of the playoffs, you're going down to Swansea, saying 12th. Now, Swansea, their form is decent for a while. They're drawing a few games now. Preston, we know what they're like, up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
But then you have West Brom have been going pretty well.
Yeah.
Sunderland have been flying it. Millwall and Luton have both quietly been starting to get wins again.
Yeah.
Then you've got Middlesbrough who've been playing well. Norwich, who haven't been great, but under a new manager now. Good first win for him.
Yeah.
And then you've got Blackburn Rovers there as well.
1 win and 5 for Blackburn is very...
Yeah, they're starting to fall off a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a really tight race from West Brom in 10th, say, all the way up to Blackburn, even Watford in 3rd.
If you were to pick playoffs teams there, like who out of all those?
To me, it's really, really, and that's not to discount, even though they've not gone well, that's not to discount QPR or Reading going on a run of 3 wins, and they're right back in it, or 2 wins even. Or Coventry.
I think Norwich and West Brom are bankers.
Yeah, or Coventry.
Yeah.
Going on a run, pushing for it. Luton, Millwall, you just don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way things are laid out, you just don't have a clue. Because Watford are by no means safe of a playoff place.
Yeah.
At all. They're not assured of one rather.
Mm-hmm.
So if we think about it, if you were to pick, you reckon Norwich and West Brom are bankers?
Just because of the form table for now, yeah.
But I mean, I'm looking at Sunderland and Borough playing really well also. Blackburn not doing so well. Then Luton and Millwall, there's just something about the two of them.
Yeah.
It's so hard to pick. I couldn't even guess it at the minute because one of those teams from 3rd to 10th is going to hit a patch of form.
Yeah, exactly.
And once they do, they're going to finish 3rd in the table.
Exactly.
The others are going to be fighting it out because it's ridiculous. There's 3 points between 10th and 3rd.
Yeah.
Literally, Watford could drop down depending on obviously what games are being played, assuming teams below them aren't playing each other. But they could realistically, in one game, drop from 3rd to 10th in the table.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it? That's crazy.
And that's not to discount Swansea or Preston, who are both within 2 or 3 points of the playoffs themselves as well, in 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
It's just their form is too patchy for me to say. But one of them hits form, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, Blackburn haven't won in a while. None of the teams from 3rd, say, down to 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, even Coventry, who are only 7 points off with a game in hand.
Yeah.
They can't afford to be dropping points.
Exactly. Yeah.
No. I just don't think they can.
So yeah, you're right. It just goes to show you though how close it is.
It's ridiculous. Usually the battle at the bottom is very tight. That's almost not as interesting this year. I'm not say it's not, but I think because Blackpool have one game in hand against Huddersfield, and Huddersfield then have another game in hand,
Yeah,
it's kind of, we don't really know what the bottom of the table looks like.
yeah, exactly.
So we'll have to wait and see. And the transfers, I think, someone up in those like top 15 places signs a good striker or a good midfielder on loan from the Premier League or something.
Yeah,
And suddenly, they hit a bit of form and things are going well for them. Or Carrick has got Akpom playing really, really well for Borough. I know he didn't get a lot yesterday, but a lot of that had to do with sending off as well. But you just get a player to hit a bit of form. Watford, if they hang on to Sarr, yeah, it's going to be tricky.
yeah, it's going very close.
Yeah, I can't wait for it at all. Will we have a quick look ahead to the fixtures, because they're going to be a bit weird next weekend because of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So the 28th, which is Saturday, we've only got 3 games going ahead. Coventry against Huddersfield. Big game for both teams, obviously. That's Coventry's, for now, game in hand. Hull City QPR. Big game for QPR if they want to try and turn things around.
Yeah.
Massive game. Middlesbrough against Watford.
Yeah. Middlesbrough beat them, Watford are in trouble.
That's the thing. If Middlesbrough beat Watford, they go ahead of them.
Yeah.
And Watford, okay, Norwich, Blackburn, Luton, Millwall, none of them are playing. So, Watford won't drop out of the playoffs or anything.
Yeah.
But that's a huge game for both teams, because if you lose that, you could be, 8th or 9th.
Yeah.
Soon
exactly.
enough.
Yeah. Exactly.
So those are those fixtures. Then the following weekend, I think that's all we have in January, those 3 left.
Yeah.
Then Friday night, Coventry, West Brom. So Coventry played twice. So Coventry might actually have played games more than some teams by the time Saturday rolls around. Saturday the 4th of February, that is.
Yeah.
Which is nuts to think of that.
Yeah.
And there's some big games. I know we look ahead to it after next weekend. There's only 3 games, so I don't know if we're going to do much of a show next weekend.
We'll do a transfer show.
We'll do a transfer show, yeah, and we'll talk about the games, I suppose. But if we look ahead a few weeks, and I know we're jumping ahead an extra week, but the reason I'm doing it is some of the games that are being played are just
they're so important. Like just
Norwich, Burnley are playing in the afternoon, the early kickoff. Rotherham, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Like that's not an easy game for Sheffield United away to Rotherham, because they're fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
Norwich at home, new manager, that's a tough one for Burnley, but Burnley can afford a few defeats even. But big game for Norwich because they have to win it.
Yeah.
Like we said, those teams in and around the playoffs, you just can't lose anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Huddersfield, QPR. Again, Huddersfield badly need the points. QPR badly need the points. Hull, Cardiff, that's a huge one down at the bottom. Luton against Stoke, big game for Luton. I mean, Luton win that, and they're right in that playoff picture again. Borough playing Blackpool. That's one of those ones where you're home to Blackpool, you're expected to win, but you're coming up against Mick McCarthy, and you're talking about a manager who's got a few months' experience in this league, who's doing really well, it must be said. Carrick has been brilliant up against a guy that just knows the division so well. So I don't know. I don't think that's as easy a game for Borough.
No.
Even though they're at home and you would expect them to win it. Then another big playoff game, Millwall against Sunderland. Tough one for Sunderland, long way to travel down.
Yeah.
Then Preston, home to Bristol City. Battle of 2 teams that are a bit up and down in form.
Reading, Watford.
Watford against Reading, somewhat of a local derby.
Yeah.
So, we know they can go either way. Swansea against Birmingham. Again, Swansea, if they want to make that push for the playoffs, the game they cannot lose. And Birmingham do not want to start sliding down towards it.
No.
And then you've got Blackburn against Wigan on the Monday night that time.
I think we could see Torre being sacked after that.
Yeah, 10 games without a win.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he'll use his Arsenal connections to get Saka in on loan till the end of the season.
Yes.
I doubt it, but you never know. Well, you do know it's not going to happen. For any Wigan fans listening, they might get a player or two from Arsenal, maybe from the reserves. I know Aziz has already gone there, the midfielder from Arsenal.
Yeah.
And they might get one or two more on loan. You wouldn't know, but yeah, I can't see Saka or Martinelli or any of them. Although Eddie Nketiah is playing really well at the minute, so maybe when Jesus comes back from injury, he can go out on loan to Wigan till the end of the season. Not much else happening in the transfer news. Just having a quick check there. No more deals today. They're all going to happen in the last few days. We know that. We're used to that at this stage. So will we leave it there, Phil, and be back next weekend with a transfer kind of special and a look at those 3 games that are going ahead, and also we'll let you know how the championship team did in the FA Cup as well.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.